You walk into a room and you realize you already know more than you think. You just do not know how to read the signs yet because every person leaves clues. From a young age you are trained to trust what people say because words are our currency. But Friedrich Nietzsche warned us not to be fooled by language because people do not speak from truth. They speak from survival, and they speak from ego, and they speak from fear. The surface of someone's personality is not them, it is their armor. The person who seems overly kind may not be kind at all, they may be terrified of rejection. The one who seems strong may be crumbling underneath, hoping no one notices. What is most deceptive about humans is that they do not even know they are doing it. Most people are actors in a play they did not write. Their smiles and their opinions and their tone are all shaped by what kept them safe in the past. This is why most people are not hiding from you, they are hiding from themselves. Nietzsche once said that every profound spirit needs a mask. He did not mean that as an insult, he meant it as a warning not to confuse the mask with the person. Here is what no one tells you about human behavior. People leak the truth all the time, not in their words, but in the cracks. You see it in the moments they look away or the way they laugh too long. You see it in the way they quickly change the subject when it gets too close to reality. The first psychological truth you must understand is that everyone wears a mask to survive. They do this not because they are fake, but because they are scared. To survive society, people create a version of themselves they hope will be accepted. But masks are not perfect, they slip, and the first sign of truth is tension. Watch for what makes someone uncomfortable because that is where the real person begins. The second truth is that what someone hates in others reveals what they are hiding in themselves. This is one of the sharpest insights regarding projection. When someone constantly mocks arrogance, they are often insecure about their own self-worth. When someone cannot stop pointing out dishonesty in others, they are usually hiding a truth they have not faced. We hate in others what we are afraid to admit in ourselves. So when you want to read someone, do not just look at what they admire. Look at what they criticize and ask yourself why that specific trait triggers them. Silence often reveals more than words ever could. Nietzsche did not believe truth came from talking. In fact, he saw language as a tool of the herd. Language is often used to avoid confronting reality. When someone pauses before answering or when they dodge certain topics, that silence is louder than speech. When they give short rehearsed replies to deep questions, they are building a wall. A person avoiding vulnerability is revealing everything about what they fear. Be very wary of excessive virtue because it is often disguised vanity. Be wary of the person who loudly proclaims their purity or the one who is always correcting others. Nietzsche called this the will to power in disguise. Sometimes morality becomes a mask for superiority. The louder the virtue signal, the more likely there is something being hidden behind it. Real goodness does not need applause, and real integrity does not need an audience. You must also realize that people do not lie to you, first they lie to themselves. This one changes everything about how you interpret social interactions. The lies you hear from people when they say they are fine or they do not care are not lies designed to hurt you. They are lies they have rehearsed so often that they believe them. Self-deception is not evil, it is a defense mechanism designed to keep functioning in a painful world. So when someone's story does not quite add up, do not assume they are trying to deceive you. Realize they have been doing it to themselves far longer than they have been doing it to you. That is what makes reading them possible, because the inconsistencies reveal the truth. Where someone feels superior, they are almost always hiding inferiority. Superiority is often overcompensation for a deep internal lack. If someone constantly reminds you of their accomplishments, they likely fear they are not enough. If someone puts others down casually, they are probably terrified of being overlooked. Real confidence does not compete, it just is. So if someone needs to dominate or control or prove themselves, look deeper. Behind the throne, you will often find a scared child wearing a crown. Reading people is not about judging them, it is about understanding their core. When someone interrupts constantly, you now know it is not always arrogance. It might be a desperate fear of being forgotten. When someone posts obsessively about happiness, it may be a cry for help. When someone avoids eye contact while saying they are fine, you know to listen to the body, not the sentence. Use these truths not to gain power over people, but to extend compassion. The more clearly you see someone, the less likely you are to hate them. Most actions are driven by unconscious fear. Ask yourself why someone over-explains or why they dominate a conversation. Why do they say yes when they clearly mean no? It is fear of abandonment, or fear of rejection, or fear of humiliation. Humans rarely act from pure desire, they act from a deep fear of loss. They fear the loss of status or the loss of love or the loss of self-worth. So when you want to read someone, stop focusing on what they say they want. Instead, ask what they are afraid of losing, because that is where the truth lives. Criticism is a mirror. The man who mocks emotional people might be terrified of his own feelings. The woman who belittles others for their appearance might be locked in a secret war with her reflection. Judgment is almost never about the other person, it is about the self. So when you hear repeated criticisms, do not be distracted by the target. Trace the line back to the speaker and ask what part of themselves they are trying to disown. Projection is not just a defense mechanism, it is a confession. If you listen right, it tells you exactly where someone's pain lives. Confidence is often guilt in costume. You have probably met the person who seems overly sure of themselves, always in control and always composed. But watch long enough and you will see the tension in their jaw. You will see the way they over-prepare and the defensiveness that comes out under pressure. Guilt hides behind false confidence. Nietzsche observed this phenomena in leaders and teachers and preachers. These are people who perform certainty because they are scared of being seen. When someone is chronically confident, look for the guilt they are trying to bury. Maybe it is something they regret, or maybe it is a version of themselves they are trying to prove wrong. Real peace does not perform. So when someone seems too confident, do not be intimidated, be curious. Exaggeration always reveals the hidden truth. This is subtle but powerful, and once you see it, you cannot unsee it. People betray themselves through exaggeration. Someone who constantly says they do not care what anyone thinks likely, cares deeply. Someone who claims they are always happy likely is not. Exaggeration is a tell, it is the ego trying to drown out doubt. Extremism in any direction is a form of imbalance, not strength. So when someone's statements sound too absolute, do not believe the content, read the insecurity underneath. Exaggeration is volume, and the question is what they are trying to silence. The desire for control masks inner chaos. We seek control everywhere in our jobs, in our relationships, and our routines. But some people crave it to the point of obsession, and that is a sign. Those who seek control often fear inner chaos. When the inner world is disordered, the outer world must be managed obsessively. If someone micromanages every detail, or if they cannot handle change, it is not because they are strong. It is because something inside them feels out of control. So instead of fearing the controlling person, see them for what they are. They are someone terrified that the moment they let go, it will all fall apart. The stricter the outer shell, the more fragile the inner self. Performance is emptiness in disguise. The louder the performance, the emptier the core. Look at the endless energy of people needing to be looked at. Nietzsche did not see this as strength, he saw it as desperation. When someone is constantly performing it, it's because they do not believe they will be seen or loved without it. So they create noise and color and drama. But the person who truly knows themselves does not need to be watched. They are already whole. So when someone's life looks like a performance, remember, it is not a show of power, it is a whisper of need. You are probably starting to feel the shift now. You walk into a room and suddenly the patterns speak louder than the words. You see someone interrupting constantly and realize they are terrified of being forgotten. You see someone who boasts endlessly and sense their invisible wound. You are not reading minds, you are reading the mask. This is not just a skill, it is a responsibility. Once you learn to see people clearly, you cannot unsee it. You will begin to understand that most people are suffering quietly behind polished smiles. Reading them is not about gaining leverage, it is about offering grace. When you see the child behind the critic and the fear behind the bully, you do not become weaker. You become unshakable. No one speaks from logic, they speak from pain. You might think that people are rational and that they argue based on facts. But underneath every logical argument is an emotional wound. A person might say they do not believe in love and that it is just a fantasy. But listen closely, they are not stating a fact, they are protecting a pain. People form their views based on what hurt them, and then they justify those views with logic. So when you want to understand someone's worldview, do not just ask what they believe, ask what broke them. Ask what scared them. Ask what they never want to feel again. This changes everything because it shifts your focus from why are they saying this to what are they afraid of repeating. Suddenly their opinions are not threats, they are defenses. Their arguments are not attacks, they are shields. And when you see that, you stop reacting and you start understanding. How someone reacts to weakness reveals their power. If you want to truly see someone's character, do not watch how they treat powerful people. Watch how they treat someone who cannot fight back. Real strength is not proven through domination, it is revealed through restraint. If someone mocks vulnerability, they are afraid of their own. If someone punishes mistakes, they likely were not allowed to make any. If someone always wins but leaves others bleeding, they are still at war with themselves. But the person who can witness weakness without judgment is rare. The person who can sit with sadness without running away and who can forgive what they could have punished, that is someone who is no longer ruled by the past. They do not need to prove anything because they have already won the inner war. So if you want to read someone, give them a moment where compassion is an option. What they do in that moment will show you who they are, not just who they pretend to be. When someone fears being forgotten, they chase attention. You have met the person who always needs to be seen. Every room they enter and every story they tell screams, "Notice me." At first glance, it looks like confidence, but it is actually terror. The hunger for attention often comes from a deeper fear of being invisible. It is the fear of living and dying without leaving a mark. So people create noise not because they love it, but because they cannot bear the silence. The child who is ignored becomes the adult who overcompensates. Instead of asking for love directly, they demand it indirectly through performance or drama or chaos. So when you see someone who is too much, do not be quick to judge. Ask what they are afraid will happen if they are not enough. Sometimes attention is not vanity, it is a cry. The person they attack is often the person they envy. People do not always attack because they hate, they often attack because they admire but feel they can never be. Criticism is easier than admiration. So the person who tears down someone successful or mocks someone confident is in pain. To see someone embody a part of you that you have abandoned is to be reminded of what you have lost. So instead of celebrating the other, we destroy them? Envy is just unspoken desire. It is the soul saying, "I want that too, but I do not believe I am allowed." If you can see this in others, you become immune to petty hate. If you can see this in yourself, you become free. People act out their childhood, not their beliefs. People do not change, they repeat. They repeat the roles they were forced to play and the fears they were taught to carry. A person who is never heard becomes someone who never listens. A person who is punished for expressing emotions becomes cold and logical and detached. A person who had to earn love becomes someone who performs for affection even when it is toxic. They think they are acting from beliefs, but really they are just reenacting the past. So if you want to read someone, do not just look at who they are, ask who they had to be. Behavior is just biography. Behind every adult is a child still waiting to feel safe. Their patterns are a confession if you know how to listen. People do not always know how to express what hurts, but they will show you again and again. A person who ghosts when things get close is confessing their fear of intimacy. A person who overworks to avoid stillness is confessing their fear of themselves. A person who flirts with everyone but connects with no one is confessing their fear of being truly known. These are not random behaviors, they are confessions. They are saying, "This is how I protect myself." They are saying, "This is where I was hurt." They are saying, "This is what I fear repeating." If you learn to listen deeply, not to words but to patterns, you can hear the truth before it is spoken. And when you do, something amazing happens. You stop personalizing and you stop judging. You start understanding and you become a mirror, not a weapon. You become someone who sees and still chooses grace. That, more than any tactic or trick, is what makes you powerful. You are not just reading people, you are remembering yourself. The more clearly you see others, the more clearly you see yourself. Everything we judge in others is something we carry. Everything we admire is something we long to embody. So look closely at the masks around you. Watch them crack. And in the silence between the cracks, listen for the truth. Because the person standing in front of you is not a mystery, they are a map. And if you know how to read it, you will never be fooled again.